Welcome to the MTR Network. This is the doctor here with a couple of interviews from AwesomeCon. This year, as the same as last year, I decided to really focus on artists in the exhibitor alley, and I was looking for creatives of color to spotlight. And I found two wonderful people representing two wonderful organizations, and you're going to be hearing the interviews here together. So I hope you enjoy these interviews about these wonderfully creative individuals and what they have to offer. We are here with Naseed. He's the creative director for PBS, which stands for Focus Black Star Media. I discovered PBS Media in Artist Alley, where they were highlighting the PB Soldier graphic novel and another novel that the name escapes me. What was the other novel that you guys had up there?
We were with EXO
Okay.
as well as Malachi.
Okay. From their website, they were developed in 2005 as an entertainment studio that works diligently with the members of its creative team to unleash stories and characters across all media, including but not limited to comics, film, television, consumer products, home entertainment, and interactive games. So I'm curious, what was the inspiration for you and your team to start PBS Media?
Well, we found that there was a lack of diversity within in the comic book industry as well as characters that we see in everyday media.
Okay. So was it a group of friends, or did you like recruit artists to be a part of your organization?
Basically, it's actually a offshoot off of a clothing line that we were actually doing in college.
Okay.
So a couple of the members from that, after we left college, everyone pretty much went into their career paths. But myself, as well as Delante Baz, who's one of the partners in PBS Media, started developing PBS Media. So we had PBS Unlimited, which was the clothing line. And then that was pretty much focused on the T-shirt and everything, and that's kind of like where the logo came from for PB Soldier,
Okay.
and then we kind of grew it from there.
So tell me a little bit more about PB Soldier, because that was one of the pieces that you guys were highlighting at AwesomeCon this year.
Well, PB Soldier, the story is set in the near future where we live in a world where everyone's considered a terrorist, and PB Soldier, who's one of the world's top hackers, has just been labeled one of the top terror threats in this world. And because of his hacking ability, is being trained as an assassin. Um, as he's being trained as an assassin, he sees visions of a life that's not of his own, which actually is his ancestors trying to guide him. He has no knowledge of this information and basically doesn't know enough about himself to be able to interpret what's going on. So they're trying to hack into him while he's trying to hack into the world. And that's pretty much kind of like where the story kind of takes off from, as he's trying to understand what's going on with these visions, making sure that he's not going crazy, and then interpreting everything else that's going on in the current world.
Okay, so I have to say, I love playing video games. This would make an awesome video game.
Yes, yes, yes. And
I'm
that's
just
something that
imagining
we're looking
myself
at
playing
down
this.
the line.
Oh, is it something that you guys might look into?
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
As we grow the fan base, that's actually one of the medias that we're looking to branch off to down the line.
So I'm curious because I just threw that out there because as you were describing it, I'm sitting up here imagining the gameplay. But a lot of people, when they're writing their comic pieces or their graphic novel pieces, they imagine turning it into like an animated series. But you just mentioned your. It sounds like you guys are more interested in the gaming piece. Why that, or are you interested in both?
No, actually, we are interested in the animation piece. That's pretty much where we look to start with this whole thing. So if you notice one thing, like with all of our books, they're called episodes because they're written as if it was a 30-minute episode.
Okay.
So that's how and they also are written in two parts. So that's kind of like how we looked at it as, okay, if this was on TV, this is what you will see, for that 30 minutes. And then the next episode would be the next issue and everything. So we don't even label them as issues. We label them as episodes.
Nice, nice. So have you considered, because I know some people too that have done this have considered doing like Kickstarters or indie, like crowdfunding campaigns. Are you trying to just, are you focused more right now on building the audience and then maybe jumping off into a crowdfunding, or are you just trying to see where it naturally organically takes you?
Well, basically, we just came off a successful Kickstarter
Okay.
last August. We are just fulfilling all of the rewards and everything from that, where we were, because we've actually been doing a platform where we were using comics to teach STEM. So
Okay.
we infused a lot of STEM topics because he's a hacker. We talk about uh, um, technology, everything that's infused into this, and we kind of use that as a platform to be able to get students interested, as well as people in general, interested in the STEM fields, as well as STEM topics. So that was a successful Kickstarter we just finished. We're actually fulfilling the book from that, and then from there, we're actually looking to do another Kickstarter a little later on after we, like I said, we had to fulfill the orders from this previous one, so everybody know that like their money went to a good cause.
Okay, that's good. And it's interesting. You and a couple other people I'm going to be interviewing for this piece. All of you seem very focused on the STEM piece and introducing like the youth into that. And I know a big part of like combining the artistic field with STEM, because I know and a lot of programs have been slashed or completely eliminated from school systems. So you bringing it up was actually a good segue, because I was going to say that I noticed on your website you guys do presentations and workshops on like storyboarding and
Animatics.
thank you. I keep stumbling over that word. It's Tuesday. I wish it were Friday. Script writing courses and character design. So it sounds like you find yourselves in educational environments or environments with the youth, as well as. I'm gonna leave that open for you to fill in the blank.
Well, basically, by trade, I'm an engineer
Okay.
uh, who navigated into the education field. So my day job is I'm an administrator for a high school where I'm oversee the pre-engineering program
Okay.
uh, in Newark, New Jersey, and because of that, like my whole plight was to inspire the next generation of technology leaders. So with that, I use this as a platform because one of the things that has come out of education is being able to develop a mental model. And one of the things that allow you to do is develop those mental models so you can be able to connect with the concepts, and then it doesn't become as abstract. So just like how words generate images, we wanted the STEM topics and everything to generate images also, and being able to be relatable to our audience so they can be able to connect to it as well. And then like, oh wow, that's kind of cool, maybe I should get into that. We look at it from a hacking standpoint, but we talk about computer information systems, we talk about coding, we talk about all of these engineering and all of these various topics, and just introducing it in a different media so they can like, wow, this may be a career path that I can actually step into. Or you can look at it from the comic side and be like, wow, this may be a career path I could step into.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. So, how do people? I have your information. I'm going to connect to it. But for you, how do you travel, or do you just focus on the region in which you guys currently are?
Generally, we travel. We travel across the country. We go as far as California. We haven't gone overseas yet, but that working next year, we're looking to do London, Nigeria, and a couple of other cons. But we have been doing a lot of the cons throughout the country. We've gone as far as do the Kamikaze in California. Then, of course, we in New Jersey and New York, we do New York Comic Con. We've done Awesome Con, as you can see. And everything else along the East Coast. We even go to Detroit for the Motor City Black Age of Comics
Nice.
con. So we've been traveling.
Okay. Are you going to be at Otakon this year?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Plan on being on MotorCon in November. Motor City Con, I'm sorry. Uh, and I believe that kind of caps off the year for us is Motor City Con. That's like the last con that we do throughout the year because that one's in November. And then we actually host our own con called the Kim Comic Book Fest, which is actually produced by PBS Media.
Wow, I didn't know about. I feel like I don't think I saw that on the site. Maybe I
Yeah,
skipped over it.
yeah, because Kim Comic Fest actually has its own site.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
but PBS Media are the producers of the actual show. So it's New Jersey's own Black Comic Book Festival that we host every year. Last year we actually did it in February. This year we were trying to lock in some guests. It didn't pan out. We was trying to get more of the Luke Cage, the behind the scenes people that kind of be a part of it. We got some of the actors and some of the behind the scenes people, but we were trying to get the creator as well as Michael Cotta to lock in, and that didn't work out for us, So we actually moved the date to March.
Okay, I was gonna
Um,
say they've been filming, so
well, I mean, yeah, lately, but I
yeah.
mean, back then they weren't filming at that time. They were actually about to start filming before before the con.
Okay, nice. That is. I'm sorry, that's just amazing, and I love that because how do I say this? A lot of these cons start, but a lot of these cons are not always inclusive. So I'm always glad to hear when people who are not necessarily included in the more mainstream cons, I'll call them,
Mm-hmm.
generate their own. For as much as it said, well, you got to make your own. It's like we've been making our own for centuries. We know how to make our
Definitely,
own.
definitely, you always got to do that. I mean, and it's about the community that we service. That's why I look at it. Uh, a lot of our like we had to educate our community on what a Comic Con is.
Mm.
From coming from North New Jersey, they if they watch Cartoon Network, they may see something about a Comic Con, or they see some people. If they go to New York, they may see some individuals dressed up as that. If
Mm-hmm.
they are in Times Square or whatever, but they never really truly experienced a Comic Con. And most individuals have this you know notation or this mindset that is just for kids. When the Comic Cons cross all genders, all ages, all nationalities, everything. It was one of the most inclusive events I've ever been to in my whole entire life. I mean it's just phenomenal that the amount of people that come together just for and it's just not, of course, the comic media. It's movies, it's the gaming, it's all of that community coming together. The blurb community, the geek community, all of that coming together at one location.
So with this, that is a good point. And you said it was family. It's all ages. What's amazing to me too is a lot of times I feel like even though you see families at these
Mhm.
conventions, I feel like these conventions are for people who grew up on like certain
Oh yeah,
things and then have exploded, and it's their chance to not just revisit their childhood, but connect with other people who may have
Mhm.
carried those interests into adulthood. Whereas some people have fallen away from that, but some of us still love that stuff.
yep, yep. And then
So,
also the way to connect the next generation. So
mm-hmm.
you have those individuals, like I call them the other guys, like DC and Marvel. They do a reboot every 7 years. They do a
Yeah,
reboot,
they should
you
probably
know.
stop.
And, and with that reboot, they are looking for that new fan base, that next generation of individuals. That's how they get your kids and
Mm-hmm.
your nephews and your nieces and all of them guys looped into the actual media that they're or the actual character bases that they are included. So you may consciously grow out of it, but now they're grooming the next generation of individuals to be able to replace you.
Well, and the truth of the matter is, it seems like they're trying to get all the money, both yours and your children's, because
Yes, yes.
it's one of those things where you don't realize the jokes that went over your head with your favorite pieces as a child until you get to adults, like, oh, and then you clutch your pearls, like, oh my goodness, what was I watching and listening to? And they continue that kind of that trend with it.
Yep, yep.
So,
Exactly
um,
what they're doing.
so also, if I know I read some stuff and we talked a little about some stuff, but if you wanted to leave anyone with an impression of PBS Media, what would it be?
Ooh. Uh, the main thing that I would say that PBS Media is doing is, like we're trying to be groundbreaking. We're trying to, well, we're looking to penetrate the market at a level where we could connect to our fan base in a real type of fashion. Like our stories are not about superheroes. You know, we kind of focus on, if you focus on your special abilities, as an individual, then you could do great things. And that's kind of like with a story. So like it's a slice of life for us. Connect the aspect of history. And of course, you throw in the science and technology, and then like that's kind of like our formula for our method of storytelling. So that's kind of like how we are like presenting ourselves to the world. Like you'll read our stories. None of the people have superpowers. They're normal everyday people, but focusing in on their skill set and being exceptional at that shows that they're true gifts. And with that, it's almost like an inspiration. Like if I could work hard and do things, then I can achieve great things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you tell them where you can find your blah 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 blah. I'm gonna put this in the show notes, but if you want to do a quick plug for PBS Media and the next event, that if someone wanted to swing by and take a in-person look at your stuff, where they're gonna catch you.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. You can find all of our stuff at www.pbs, pbsoldier.com. That's for the comic, as well as www.pbsmediastudios.com. All of our social media links for PB Soldier is at PB Soldier on Twitter, on Instagram, on Tumblr. For PBS Media, is actually PBS Media Studios, so it's at PBS Media Studios. And our next event, we're actually going to be at Afro Beats in Newark, New Jersey this Saturday. We'll be doing that event. We'll also be at Lincoln Park Music Festival at the end of the month, which I believe is the 29th in Newark, New Jersey. And then the next event for us will be until Motor City Con in November in Detroit, Michigan, as far as what we signed up for. And we still are working out something with New York Comic Con to see if we'll be a part of that event also.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. And I know we had to do a lot of rescheduling, so I really appreciate you being flexible and talking to us. And I'm looking forward to the comic. I have sons, and I'm trying to get them into reading more, and comics is always that gateway. So.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's definitely one of the inspirations. Like my son, he's a reluctant reader. So introducing him to comics and everything has made him more of an avid reader. And the one thing that I looked at from the research is that, being able to develop that mental model to connect those concepts, the children actually go deeper into the text versus, like they just kind of put it down. Because like with a textbook, what has happened is like you learn that information for that time period, and then once you put it down, it's gone. Yeah. But with comics and everything, like you see a concept, you actually you dive deeper into it, and then actually, go further into that content. So what I've noticed, especially with children in general, is they see something, and like they get these ideas, and then they want to Google it, they want to Wikipedia it, they want to learn more about it, and then they go so much deeper into it, more than you would even ask them when they were just reading a book, and then just kind of just getting it on a surface level.
And I think that's something that we do carry into adulthood, because I can read, and I love to read, but if it's not, like you said, if it's not creating that mental model, if it's not necessarily helping me to develop an image of something, if it's just dry text, I'll either fall asleep, I'll give up, or I'll walk away from it, not any more learned than when I first picked it up.
Yes, that's correct.
It makes an absolute difference. You're absolutely right. So, well, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
All right, and until next time, everyone, thanks.
All right.
Communications Manager for Artway Alliance. I discovered Artway Alliance at AwesomeCon this year in DC, where they had an exhibitor table as well as a coloring contest in the AwesomeCon Junior section, co-hosted with Venus's Comic Shop. And they host a diverse group of artists who, according to their website, quote, are committed to providing students with the opportunities and experiences necessary to acquaint them with the practice, techniques, and procedures associated with media arts and related careers. Artway Alliance strives to provide these opportunities to those who would otherwise not have direct access to instructors, materials, and other like-minded individuals. So, Sierra, thank you for joining us. We were just chatting before we started about the challenges of connecting, and I know you guys are busy on your end, so I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So I really liked your mission. I felt it was pretty noble, especially when we look across the country over the last 20 to 30 years at the reduction and in some cases the outright elimination of arts program in K through 12 education. What inspired your group to develop this nonprofit?
So the nonprofit came up with talking to our president and founder, Eric Suggs Jr. When we were kids, we both had this moment where we were artists, we were trying to draw, and we were drawing Superman and Batman and just comic characters, and, someone said, that's not art, or, this is great, but this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be doing Mona Lisa right now. And so when we were talking about it years later, we were just like, why take that moment away from a child? If this is what a child wants to draw, why not use that to educate them? Why not use them to show them that, this Superman you're drawing, that can be a character that, becomes just as big as Superman now. And that's how it kind of came about, and just wanting to change the lives of kids now so that they're not in a situation where we kind of made the connection later that you can do this type of art and become something from it.
Nice. It's interesting to hear people talk about how comics aren't art. I'm like, do you know the
I know.
It absolutely is, and I mean, not art takes different forms, but with comic characters or like fantasy characters, there's like entire stories behind it that grow and evolve, and that changes how those images grow and evolve. So I always hate to, even when you hear people talking about, well, that's not real reading. Like, really? Because there's words and you have to understand the words. And so I'm pretty sure that's a form of reading.
Right. And so much goes into it. So I like to tell parents when they're kind of like, okay, well, my kid's kind of into this. I was really into Sailor Moon as a kid. Mm-hmm. And so from that, I learned so much about our solar system. For example, random side note, like the crows that Sailor Mars has, Phoebos and Deimos, those are the names of the moon. And then going off of that, I got into coding, and what did I code about? I coded about Sailor Moon. So I was on GeoCities at like 7 years old learning how to code just because I wanted to tell people about how much I love Sailor Moon. Like, it opened so many possibilities.
That is awesome. And I remember GeoCities.
I was a weird kid.
No, that was the and GeoCities was the go-to with the, okay, let me not go there. Some of your classes include storyboarding, creating environments, character design, illustration, and writing classes. Do you find that sometimes kids just want to jump right into drawing without having a story set up? Because I can imagine they're like, oh, I've got this image in my head, and they may have a general idea, but they're not quite sure where to take it.
All the time. So we have different types of kids. We'll have kids who they'll come down and they're able right off the bat to just draw their character. And that's their character. They've pretty much had that character since birth. That is what is going to make them their money. And with those, we go, okay, well, you have the stories behind it, but, we just have to make sure you get the foundations behind that. And they're really receptive to that. And then you have other ones who are kind of like, okay, I don't really know what I'm going, but I'm going to run with you guys. And we like those a lot because it's really interesting to see that light turn on. Mm-hmm. So they'll be like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know why I'm here. In some cases, they might be here because, their siblings really into it. but then sometimes they come up with the best things that you see because they just didn't have that real opportunity to have that imagination or go, oh, if I put it this way, this is how it works. It's really great to see.
That's cool. I have a 13-year-old who sometimes he has been doing these. He keeps trying, and I keep encouraging him. And he'll start to tell a story, and then he stops because hits a dead end. And he starts to tell a story, and then he stops in terms of writing. But he's not doing it formally with any formal training. It's just an idea that comes to his head that he writes around, but then he stops because he hits a block because he's not quite sure where to take it next. How do you help kids get around those kinds of blocks? Because I'm sure he's not the only one that does that, where you've got this great idea and you think it's this broad world, and then you get to writing and it turns out to be a paragraph. And so you're like, I don't know what to do next.
So I also have that problem, and to a certain extent, I'm still trying to figure it out. A lot of times, what we'll do, we try to have exercises that kind of, okay, why don't you look at it from this way? Or with the exercises, we have one that a few of our artists do in different ways where they'll pick words out, and then you have to kind of incorporate that into your story, just to kind of push things along. Let's see, what else have we done? We'll always go, okay, well, have you thought about it from this way? Or just, sometimes you just have to take a step back and then try to come to it. Or my personal favorite way is that we go, well, where do you want to end up? Mm-hmm. So we try to make sure that they have some type of ending or at least some checkpoint that they want to get to. I think that's a good way of saying it. So that, okay, if this is the checkpoint you want to get to, what needs to happen to get there? All right, so you got to that checkpoint. How do you get to the next checkpoint? And sort of kind of using that type of language to be like, you don't have to necessarily have an ending, but just make sure you have a place where you can feel that momentum of the story is moving.
What are some of the challenges? Because on your website, you talk about partnerships. What are some of the challenges that you faced with getting support in the partnerships you seek, specifically in the business sector? And how do you convince businesses that arts education is important?
So, in terms of the businesses that we've been partnering with, I think we've been very lucky where they are fully aware of how important arts education is. The problem has been budgeting, just making sure that the money there is for it, because what happens is I think people now understand that arts education is important, but when they're like, okay, should I take something from math or science, which of course, incredibly necessary, it's just arts is always turns out to be the first thing that is on the chopping block. Mm-hmm. So now it's kind of going, okay, well, you have your budget, how can we supplement it? How can we convince you, that art education is important, but how can we convince you that this money definitely can go here and you're getting the same amount if you had just invested just strictly in STEM? How do we show you that STEAM is so much more important, when you put the arts into science, technology, education, and math? So for the most part, it's kind of working. For us, the challenge, I think, since we're a nonprofit, we're trying to make sure we have other ways and other funding coming in just so that we can supplement our partners, so that, if they can get 50%, well, we can do the other 50%. We can help you out since you guys are trying to give us, the space or the students. We know we need to make it happen. It's just making sure we get all aspects of it.
And continue with that conversation around STEAM. That's important. It was an important part of your mission. And in your website, you also talk about the Common Core elements and infusing that into the curriculum. But what does that look like in practice? And how does it impact the materials and the stories that your students create?
So in practice, our curriculum, we do a lot of curriculum. The main ones that focus on STEM and Common Core, we try to emphasize what the kids are learning. Or in terms of STEM, we try to just emphasize one aspect of science, technology, engineering, and math again into into their stories. So it can look like anything the students want it to look like. We just try to focus them and say, okay, for example, um, you're making a race or making a story about a race. Your characters need to have a science, technology, engineering, or math theme to them. Who wins this race? Why do they win the race? What are they utilizing from these elements that are giving them an advantage? So from that, it can look like anything, but we're making them kind of focus on these things. Like, in terms of mechanics, this person might have engine in their legs, which is a shout out to My Hero Academia. So that might push them to go faster. But if this person is doing something more sciencey, who they're racing against, that might look like the Flash. So who wins in that situation? So we get into things like that. And then also, a lot of times I think we forget how much math and all these elements are inherent in art. Mm-hmm. For example, when we teach animation, you need to think about squash and stretch. So what does that physics look like? Anatomy and science. If you're drawing this person, where should their hand be? What muscles are moving? We try to kind of touch on that to make sure that we incorporate that. And in terms of the impact of the students, I think it makes them think a little bit more. Like, the best sound to ever hear from a kid is when they go, "Oh," and it means they got it. So I hear that a lot when we go, okay, well, we're talking about the physics of the walk cycle in animation. Where is the person putting more weight on? What does a step look like? And then when they see it happening and go, oh, you're just like, yes, they got it. And they're able to kind of use that in other aspects of their life.
Nice. And it's interesting because I remember, it's been so long since I've taken an art class because I wasn't a very good drawer. But I remember we started off with shapes, and basic shapes are a subset of mathematics. So it's interesting that we were just talking about the fact that arts are the first to go, when arts are a very practical way of applying the concepts that schools insist are important to a child's education.
Right. It's crucial because, I mean, I always tell any child, adult who says I can't draw, that it starts with a line. Like, if you can write a letter, you can draw. Mm-hmm. So literally, the alphabet is you drawing, these symbols that communicate words. So it's just something like we really can't take that art away because it is literally the foundation of everything. We just kind of, I guess, have gotten away from that. And it's unfortunate.
We very much boxed our education to the point where creativity is not necessarily rewarded. We see it in the way our schools are actually set up. If you think, you think about the setup of the school, so it kind of stifles that creative bug that kids can have.
Definitely. I remember one time where I was drawing, I think, an angel, and admittedly, it was during math class, and my math teacher was like, you need to put that away. And I remember I kept bringing it out, and I think it was my history teacher was actually like, oh, I see what you're doing. Can I put it up? And he was like, you spelled some things wrong, but you know what? I'm going to put this up. Let me introduce you to the art teacher. So it's just how you kind of direct kids to it. Like, okay, right now we're doing, how did he put it? He was like, this is great. Why don't you next time draw something with history? So I think I tried to draw Theodore Roosevelt, and it was terrible, but he still liked it.
So coming back to the actual group.
Yeah.
You have a very diverse group of artists who work with you to bring the program to life. And often when we see these entities, if we're honest, they tend to be very homogenous, especially from a racial standpoint. I'm curious, was there a commitment early on to making sure that the artists working in the program came from a variety of backgrounds with a diversity of experience? Because in addition to like racial and ethnic and gender diversity, you also have traditional 2D and 3D artists, you have stop motion animators, digital artists, and mural makers, along with many others. Was that kind of the founding vision to move forward, or did that just come together organically?
I want to say that it was half organic, and by that I mean we always knew that we wanted um, comic book creators, cartoonists, and video game makers. We're still looking for video game makers, so if anyone's interested, of course. um, and we also knew, for example, I'm a black woman. Eric, our president, is a black man. We wanted to reach kids who had our backgrounds, and for that, kids need to see the people who look like them doing it. So I think in terms of that part, we were very strategic. For example, sometimes it's a little harder to recruit women, but I know we went in like, okay, this woman right here looks awesome. We really like her work. We make sure that we at least talk to a certain amount of women, and when we speak to all the artists that we try to recruit. And then some of it was just a lot of luck. So we met Jake and Jimmy, who do our animation. We just met them randomly at a con. Jake was like, I do stop motion. We were like, that's awesome. It's making a resurgence with Coraline and Kubo and the Two Strings.
Oh my God, I love that movie. I cried so hard. It was so beautiful. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you because I love stop motion and it's so hard, and just being able to show kids how to do it, and now kids like can literally download an app on their phone, but they still need to know basics. And just watching Jake, he's able to go, okay, so this is great, but this is what you have to do. So we kind of just push kids further. And so it's just been kind of a great little family that we've been able to create, just because we just go, this person's interested, they're really cool, let's bring them on. As well as, okay, well, I'm looking at the people we're able to retain. We need to make sure that we are let's see if we can maybe get someone who does digital, but maybe see if they can have more of an Asian background. Like, we do definitely look at our demographics of artists and go, okay, is there anything that we need to touch on? But at the same time, we let it happen naturally. If we're not going to force an artist, of course, to work with us, but it happens in a very weird mesh of luck and making good choices.
It's always nice when it can come together organically. I think a lot of entities tend to approach diversity and hiring from a numbers perspective, like, oh, I got to check the box and fill this, and then we're good, forgetting that there needs to be relationships amongst the people who work with each other so that it works well, or else that the diversity by numbers thing won't create anything lasting, and it won't help you grow your business, it won't help you grow your audience or your reach, and it won't help you grow as a person either.
Yes, so one of the great things about our artists is some of them actually knew each other and brought others in. Okay. And then we all kind of became a family. So sometimes they'll have art challenges among themselves. Sometimes they'll swap information about what kind of work they're doing, what's the best medium for them, and just give each other tips. So we've become this great hodgepodge family that just really works. And on top of that, they're all very invested into our program. So a lot of times what we'll do is, before we do anything, we ask the artist, do you think this is feasible? Do you think this works? And if they say no, then we won't do it, because, if our artists aren't behind us, we don't have programming.
Yeah, this is true.
So we try to make sure that they're a very big part, that they know they're a big part of our programming, of just AWA as a whole.
My final question, which is a follow-up to the previous question, is that in your photos and your website, you work with a lot of children of color here in the DMV. And we know that you touched on it. Representation is important, and seeing a diverse group of teachers doing what they may not have considered can open doors for them. What has this experience been like for the artists? Because, again, you have a diverse group. And I don't like to assume that they've had contact with communities of color. They may have, they may not have. But what has this experience been like for them? What have they reported? Kind of getting out of it, being attached to this program in this way.
I've seen a lot of fulfillment in different ways. So we deal with a huge range of communities, of course, and just in any situation, just being able to see a kid's eyes light up. One of my favorite stories is we were actually doing a draw Pokemon class at an event we had, and one kid was just like, "You're going to draw Gyarados?" And he was just so excited, and just to have that moment of this kid just gleefully just drawing Gyarados and following along, that really meant something to them because geeks just came into vogue recently. So,
yeah.
so for us, like when we were kids, and I'll fully admit I was a nerdy kid. I carried my first 30 comics. I carried in a backpack with me all the time because I was like, I'm not losing these. These are precious. So I kind of got a little teased. And so to see this kid and all these other kids just happily and gleefully being like, these characters mean something to me, and they can actually talk to an adult who understands what's going on and can even argue with an adult and go, oh no, I don't like the Johto region, I like Sun and Moon right now, that's better, and have like that dialogue. It's really great because I love my parents, I love my teachers, but I know for a fact that when I was talking about Sailor Moon or Supergirl, their eyes kind of glazed over a little bit. So I think for both, it's just to see these kids, well, for the artists, is to see these kids and they're just happy to see, like, oh my gosh, the next generation is going to be awesome and we're helping to make them awesome. That I think that's how they feel in certain ways. And then for the kids, it's like these adults like understand me and can talk my language. Because another side off story is with Power Rangers coming back in Netflix, there was a kid who was talking about, yeah, you know, Jason is the Red Ranger, but I really like Zach. And I was like, I was really more into Trini. And he was just like, whoa, you know what I'm talking about. Because mom's like, I have no idea.
Well, I'm surprised that kids this age know about the original Ranger.
Right, but it's Netflix, so
yeah, that's true.
it's amazing. So they're amazed when you can talk about Steven Universe, but then we're just as amazed when they're talking about like 92 Batman cartoon. It's really interesting to see. But just to have someone who's truthfully into it, and you know, you can have that camaraderie with them, and they're an adult, and you're like, okay, this isn't something that's just for kids. It's not weird. And for artists, it's just like, these kids are amazing. We're helping them, and we're showing them, hey, look, this is what we're doing now. You can do it too, and you can maybe even be better than us. You can be the next Superman. You can be the next Wonder Woman. And you can make it so that this character looks like you. So it's a really interesting give and pull.
Awesome. Awesome. Was there anything else that you wanted to share to close out? Because that was kind of the end of my questions. Anything that you want them, you know, our listeners to know about Artway Alliance?
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Come to our site, sign up for our newsletter. The way we work right now is that we'll actually come to you. So the best way to put it is, if you're in the DMV area and you would really like to host an event at a library, at a school, we try and make it happen. And we're in the process of expanding, and we would just love to see and hear from everyone, get their, basically to get their feedback in any way, or if they just want to volunteer. We always need volunteers and more artists, and also if they want to book a class from us.
Awesome. I know we struggle to connect, but thank you so much for persevering and chatting with us. I always make a commitment. This is my second year at AwesomeCon, and I've always said that I want to highlight, artists of color. And there were so many there this year. And when I saw you guys and you pointed out a few other folks that we were able to connect with, and I was just really glad that we were able to make this happen. So thank you so much for hanging in there.
Thank you, because I know it was on both sides. In life, sometimes it be crazy.
It happens. Life happens. So that wraps up our Awesome Con Artist Spotlight with PBS Media with MC Gifted and Artway Alliance with Sierra Dangerfield Harris. You can check them out at their websites. PBS Media's website is pbsmediastudios.com. I'll have their other social media handles in the show notes. Artway Alliance can be found at artwayalliance.org. Again, PBS Media is in the Jersey, New York area, and Artway Alliance is in the DMV area. But as you heard during their interviews, they're always willing to travel and connect. So make sure that you reach out, and if you know folks who could use their services, or you have a need of their services, or you're interested in contributing and assisting, please feel free to get in touch with them. Thanks for taking the time with us today, and take care.